During the first several years of being a wedding photographer, anytime that I shot detail photos, flat lay photos, I always relied on just whatever the couple thought or remembered to bring on that day. And I just relied on the surroundings that I had around me. I relied on what the floor looked like, or a table, or just whatever I had on the actual day of. And because of that, I just never liked taking detail photos until I completely changed how I approached shooting detail photos. Now it has become one of my favorite things to do on a wedding day. A few years ago, I looked at my wedding photography with my wife, Allie, who runs this business with me. And when we looked into how I was shooting weddings, details was a major thing that I wanted to be more intentional about and not just kind of show up on a wedding day and hope everything goes well. I wanted to have control over that, and I wanted to change it from something that I just had to do and it was like, oh, I gotta shoot details now, to something that was very much a creative element of who I was as a photographer. That it wouldn't just be detail photos, but the interpretation of those details would be something that people wanted me to do specifically. And we did two things. The first thing was to figure out, like, what did I actually want to do? How did I want to photograph details? What did I want them to look like? And then the second thing was to eliminate all the variables that made that not possible before. And what we discovered after going through this process was that there's kind of two main ways that you can really make a huge difference on your detail photos and get them closer to a place where you really love them and ultimately your clients really love them. The two ways are, first, communication. So you can just communicate really clearly to your client what you want them to have. And as long as they are able to bring it all and able to do it all, then you're gonna have at least the building blocks to create really beautiful and intentional detail photos. The second way is to just bring it yourself. When I first heard about this, I don't remember where it came from, but I think actually it might have been my wife, Allie, who came across this and was like, Luke, look what these people are doing with detail photos. And my mind was completely blown. Yeah, it had never occurred to me that I could actually bring things to a wedding day to influence how it looked. Like, that was just mind blowing to me when I first found out that someone brought a backdrop and then they took their detail photos on that backdrop. That was like, oh my goodness, that's so brilliant. Because that's one of those things, one of those variables that you're always concerned about. Like, will I have a place to photograph the details on? And when you just bring the things yourselves, then you're sure that you're gonna have exactly what you need for the day. And what we do is a combination of both of those things. We make a really clear communication plan with our couples to specifically tell them, listen, these are the things that I need on the morning of your wedding. I need your stationery. I need a copy of this and this. I need an envelope, a clean envelope that comes with your stationery. Get it from your calligrapher or whoever is doing your stationery. Have a copy of it. Have your earrings out. Have your shoes ready. And I give them a whole list of things that they need to bring on the morning of, so that when I'm doing those detail photos and I'm going through my little plan of how I like to do details, I'll have everything I need. Now, if you've never kind of come across shooting details in this way, or maybe you have and you felt kind of overwhelmed and intimidated by it, I would say it doesn't need to be intimidating. I know if you go on Instagram, if you go on Pinterest and you look at like inspirational flat lay photos, it can be crazy. Like, people get so crazy with this and they get so elaborate and they have these like beautifully sourced props from like Portugal and Paris and they bring them on here and it's just like incredible. And it is beautiful. They have these like rare stamps and blah, 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 blah. it doesn't need to be like that for every wedding. In fact, it would be silly to just make that a blanket artistic decision to have these super elaborate flat lays every time you shoot a wedding, because not every client is like that. Now, when we first started, I did feel that pressure to have it really elaborate. I felt the pressure that I needed like these props and I needed it to make it really fancy. And what I'm doing now, what I did last year and what I plan to be doing this year is make it simple. And that is just like the phrase that I say over and over and over again. If you have watched any of my videos, you know that I love simple things. I love to minimize your choices so that you can focus on creativity, so you can focus on what you have in front of you instead of spending all your time being like, okay, do we want this prop or this prop or this prop or this prop? So what I do now is mostly rely on the bride's actual details and the groom's details, as well as primarily the flowers that they have for the day. So I typically ask the florist, I ask the couple ahead of time to make sure to set aside some blooms specifically for me so that I can style them with all the details. And how I like to think about it is that I have the details, I compose them and put them together in a really beautiful way, and then use their flowers to emphasize and to kind of decorate the photo. So now I'm just gonna go through my bag that I bring on a wedding day and show you exactly what I use to do these flat lays. So I have these styling boards. They are, well, that's just like a white reflecting thing. Okay. But these are styling boards. I have two styling boards that I bring on every wedding. I have a neutral kind of linen, and then I have a French blue, which I kind of rarely use. I mainly focus on just a neutral look. Now, I do love the look of these boards. It's a company that actually no longer exists, Heirloom Bindery. But you can find these boards online. You can find different people that sell them. But I really love having just a neutral board that I use for almost all my weddings. And the photos that you all see today, I think are all done on this board, or something that I'm trying to do, because I hate the physical board, is that I'm actually trying to make and fabricate my own flat lay backdrops. This one is a hand-painted piece of canvas that I painted to the color and the texture that I wanted, and I've been using this on weddings as well. The thing that I love about it is that I can customize the color, exact color that I'm looking for, and that it rolls up and it's not this huge obnoxious board that I need to carry around and try to figure out a place where to put it after I'm done with the details. So that's the board, and it just goes in this kind of linen bag, which is kind of nice. The other thing that I have is just one of these kind of poster board things. And I use this to reflect some light onto the board. So kind of depending on where I'm setting up to shoot, often I'm, shooting by an open window. I find that the light can be very strong on one side and then it gets very dark on the other side. And so what I do is I set this white card on the other side of the board to bounce some light back on there. So it makes it a little bit more of an even look and it doesn't have kind of these strong shadows. The other thing that I carry is yet another linen bag. And in here, I have a few things. This used to be a lot more full when I carried props and such and things, but now I've really cut that back. So what I carry is a few of these plexiglass risers, and this is what goes underneath the stationery. Like, this is how you can get some depth, bring things closer to the camera, have things further apart. And I have a whole bunch of different sizes and different types of plexiglass and acrylic. I think that's just like an acrylic block. And the nice thing about having clear is that it doesn't cast any shadows and it doesn't cast any weird coloring or whatever when it's underneath something like an invitation. I also apparently have some business cards in here. And we also carry just like a nice little white round dish. I guess we do have one prop. And this is something that's, our style is very clean and very classic. Something like this, this little kind of ceramic dish is perfect for kind of putting rings and stuff. But that's really the only prop that I have in here. I also have 2 sets of scissors. I have these like really tiny scissors, and then I have medical scissors for, I don't know why we have those in there, but just 2 types of scissors to be able to cut flowers, cut things like that. We also have these things called flower frogs. These are these little metal kind of scary looking spiky things. And this is really great if you need to be able to stand a flower up and facing you. Otherwise, it's like practically impossible. So I have 4 of those in here. The last and final thing is, right now I have 2 ring boxes, but I actually usually carry a few more. But this is going back to like consistency. Sometimes people are wearing their engagement ring, or they have their wedding bands, but maybe they're in like a branded box of the specific jewelry place that they, bought them in. And those boxes sometimes aren't always the prettiest. And so what I did, these are very well known. They're called Mrs. boxes, but these are just some velvet boxes that I use for example, their rings or their diamond. And again, I try to get kind of neutral looking, classic looking ones that will often go with kind of all the colors that are kind of trending in season to season. So we always make sure that we have a few of these that will go really well with the color of the wedding that we're shooting. And that's all I have. The rest is creativity. The rest is putting the composition together, making every detail look beautiful. And instead of focusing on like, okay, what props do I have or what props that I don't have, I really focus on how can I style these details in the best way. And how can I enhance it with the flowers that they're already using to make it a really beautiful piece of art.